Okay, Tammy, can you hear me? Okay, well, I will call to order this May regular monthly meeting of the Village of Trumansburg Board of Trustees, a little after 7 p.m. on May the 9th. Trustee Hannan will hopefully be joining us late. Deputy Mayor Carver is excused for the evening. Are there any changes, additions, or deletions to the agenda?
Keep joining in person.
He's hoping to be joining us.
Maybe I shouldn't be sitting this.
Maybe shouldn't what?
That's,
Sit in this seat.
oh, he'd actually be one seat over.
We'll just keep playing this ball.
Yeah. We'll figure it out. Any changes, additions, deletions to the agenda?
Not for me.
We do have what could be an extended executive session at the end, so we will be moving diligently through the agenda. Item number 3 is our privilege of the floor. Public comment period number 1. I do see one member of the public joining us online via Zoom. Maureen, I don't know if you had anything in particular you wanted to comment on, or if you're just here to keep us company on a beautiful sunny Monday evening. Not sure if Maureen can hear us or not. Joel, did you have anything you wanted to comment on in any?
Whenever it's appropriate, just to give us statistics.
Okay.
Sounds like that's what we would do.
Perfect. Well, Maureen, if you can hear me, if you do have something you wanted to comment on, please let me know. I will make a space if at any point you wanted to jump in. Item number 4 is our reports of representatives. We have both Ann Corman and Mary Bouchard joining us. Whichever one of you would like to go first, please proceed.
I can start.
Okay.
Hi, everybody. Let's see, since we last met, a couple things. We raised the election poll workers' salary up to a living wage to help retain and attract people to work the polls, and also to compensate them more fairly. And you might have heard, as far as like state redistricting, there have been some kerfuffles, I guess you would say, and so we're going to have have 2 primaries, so there'll be more time for election workers, and we're going to possibly need more people. So look for some dates coming up. There'll be an extra primary this year. You've probably heard that New York State has a mask, I guess, not suggestion, urging. We and the U.S. New York State and the CDC is urging folks to wear masks again for this county and 30 some other counties in New York State right now because of high transmission levels of COVID. And so we're asking people to, we're urging people to do that inside if you're around other people. And we still have some COVID tests. If you know someone that needs some, let me know. There are some at the county office for the aging, but I got a supply from them when I was down there. I was going to bring some to Juniper Manor, but they don't really have a need for them right now, but I have a bunch. I also have masks. What I found out too is folks that are on Medicare, you can, with your Medicare card, you can get up to 8 tests at a time, free. So maybe that's why we're not seeing as many folks who are older asking for the COVID tests. But I have a whole bunch that are going to expire at the end of July, so let me know. And the N95 masks.
Wait,
Let's see.
and 95 masks? Did you say that?
Yeah, I have some N95 masks too. And you can also get those at the library, all libraries. And if you need like a bulk amount, you know, if you want to pass them out, if you don't have any already at the village hall, you can talk to our emergency operation, or I'm sorry, our emergency department. And they will supply you with quite a few of those.
Okay, thank you.
Mhm. But if you just needed like a pack of 10, just let me know and I can drop them off to anybody. We've had 2 more people pass away from COVID since the last time I met with you. And last I checked yesterday, there was 10 people in the hospital with COVID. And let's move on to some airport stuff. The county airport is aggressively trying to get low-cost air carriers. So we'll keep you updated or look for news on that. We're hoping to get some direct flights similar to what Elmira Airport has. So it'll be, so people can get away easier, and so that the airport will be more accessible. Let's see, the New York State emergency declaration, as you know, is extended for open meetings and other issues, is extended till May 15th. And I don't know if locally you have to do this, but we're looking at a county law that the state is giving us the option to do of continue for 2 more years, allowing some people, if we have a quorum in person, that some members can attend virtually if there's an extenuating circumstances, such as their car breaks down, they have caregiver needs, they're caring for someone who's ill, or they're ill or disabled. So we're looking at passing that countywide, or for the county. And I don't know if municipalities, but I don't know if any of you guys know anything about that.
Any municipality that wants to be able to have that ability has to adopt. Actually, I don't know if a local law is required or if we can do it by resolution, but it does have to be something that's enacted with each governing body.
Okay. Yeah, we're doing I think it's it's a local law we're gonna have to pass. Let's see what else. That's a little outside the airport, but I'm sorry, a little bit outside the village, but the Podunk Road Bridge is going to be replaced probably within the next 2 years. So the county is going to be working with the town on that. And that's a 107-year-old bridge. So we're going to look at whether that meets any historic requirements. And the county has established our fiscal target for next year, just the very beginnings of the process of our budgeting. Our fiscal target is an increase of 1.88% of the county levy. And redistricting for the county for legislature seats, that has been ongoing, and the independent commission that's doing that for us is getting very close. And I think they're actually gotten down to recommending a certain map of redistricting. And so you can look at that on the county website, and you can sign up for updates on that. The one that they're currently looking at is raising the number of legislators from 14 to 16. For this district, it looks like it would only change that it would take out the small portion of District 5 that covers the town of Ithaca, and it would replace it with a little bit more of the town of Enfield. And we are going to start to work with our consultant on the Community Recovery Fund. And we've established a committee of legislators to work with them. And I am one of those legislators. So I will keep you updated. But also I'm going to recommend folks, again, sign up, go to the county website. And if you haven't seen that yet, you can ask to sign up for many different topics, and you could sign up just for that topic to get things. So you'll get an update, you know, sometimes within a few hours to 24 hours after any committee meets about it. So please do that, but so you can get things quickly. And I think that's most of what I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Ann. Any other comments or questions for you? All right, thank you much.
You're welcome.
Mary.
Yeah. Oops. I don't have too much since it's only been a couple of weeks since the last meeting. But I just wanted to mention that the village had a rather lively discussion on the exotic animal ordinance, which has been proposed to be considered by the town board. And this would prevent traveling shows of certain specific kinds of animals that are mentioned in the, or named in the proposed ordinance. We'll probably have another information session, and of course, if we do decide to pass it, we'll have a separate public hearing on that. And the town is also moving forward. It looks like we're going to engage with the Rural Water Association to have some water studies undertaken. This would specifically refer to drinking water source protection plans. And it would involve well testing for for individuals within the town, as well as looking into extension of the existing water infrastructure. But that hasn't started yet, but that's on our agenda. And the last thing is just that, we had a recognition of Arbor Day passed by the board on April, well, it was passed by the board on the 26th, but Arbor Day was actually April 29th. And our tree advisory committee was urging us to pass that. So we did. And that's about all I have right now.
Okay, thank you, Mary. Any questions or comments for Mary? All right, thank you, Mary.
You're welcome.
Item number 5 on our agenda is our consent agenda. The minutes from the April meetings will be, we will be approving them in June. We have only one item on the consent agenda, which is our abstract of claims for the month, which I'll read into the record. We have a general fund abstract totaling $129,749.21. We have a EMS billing abstract of just $702 in receipts. Water fund abstract totaling $40,903.64. Sewer fund abstract $8,792.89. And the trust and agency abstract totaling $3,655.45. And so I would entertain a motion to adopt the consent agenda consisting of just the abstract of claims as presented.
So moved.
Second.
Any comments, questions, or discussion? Hearing none, all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? No abstentions. Okay. Moving on to item number 6, which is reports from board members, starting with myself. We have in the Dropbox under 6A1 a lease renewal. Contract, I believe this is with, well, it's a Sprint tower, which is on our water tower. They have hired a third-party contractor to renegotiate all their leases. The terms of this lease simply state that the existing and current lease will remain in effect. This has been in place since at least 2002. So it's simply a renewal of the current structure and current payment. And I did not ask Vicki to pull how much they pay us every year. It's somewhere in the $800 to $1,000 a month range, I believe. And so I would entertain a motion to authorize me to sign this lease renewal as presented.
So
Second,
Questions, comments?
do we want to look at asking for more if we haven't touched this in a decade?
Well, the cost has, the payments have increased over time, but
Okay.
the terms, go ahead, Vicki.
It's $1,399.21.
nice.
What a random number.
There's always I guess a conversation to be had about renegotiating, but at the same time, it's,
I have no basis for kind of comparison, so I'm going away on that.
I
As long
also,
as-
so sorry.
No, just that making it clear that it has continued to go up, and, you know,
Yeah.
I don't know if this is the one we decided to go up on, but it's not the same from 10 years ago.
I believe both of our contracts with Nextel, Sprint, T-Mobile, whatever they are now, and AT&T, every 5 years we receive a 5% increase.
Okay.
That's the way the past
That's good.
contracts have stated, so.
That's good.
any other thoughts or comments from the board?
No.
Okay, hearing none, then all in favor of approving my signing the lease renewal, please say aye.
All right.
Aye, any opposed? Okay, the next item under my report, letter of support. So I received an email Friday with apologies for the late notice from Jay Franklin of Tompkins County Assessment, asking for letters of support for a potential passage of a state level law, which would allow for up to 50% of property taxes to be reduced on those properties where there is a permanent conservation easement in place. So this would primarily be privately owned land, which has been, let's say, as part of someone's will, placed into a conservation easement for the purpose of protecting green space. But because it's privately owned, potentially in a trust of some kind, up until the present, they would be paying full assessment value. So there is an effort in the state legislature to allow for municipalities to opt in, much like the veterans tax exemption. This is not automatic. It would allow for municipalities to opt in and allow for a reduction in their specific property tax on those properties. I don't believe we have any properties in the village that this would apply to. But Jay has asked for letters of support so that municipalities have the ability to opt in if they should so choose. I told him, sounds fine to me, but I would bring it to the board, as this is something that I could certainly write a letter of support on my own, but I think he's looking for it from the municipalities. So I wanted to see if there were any thoughts, yay, nay, or indifferent. Again, it doesn't directly affect the village of Trumansburg, but we would be advocating for the ability of other municipalities or us, if someone were to leave a piece of green space in the future,
Right.
to, the Abner Treeman Family Trust, and they're going to bequeath part of their private property into it, we would have the ability to reduce property taxes on that piece, should we so choose.
Yeah, no, I think that's great. Also, especially, so just to track this out, let's say that Camp Barton was in the village and people who have properties adjacent to it that were currently undeveloped parcels or adjacent to Camp Barton, they could say, I'm gonna make this dedicated conservation land. And it would stay that way. So effectively you would have more green space contiguous.
Right, so specifically for
And
property
then
that
get
is
50%
not,
off of development.
it's specifically for property that is not donated to, say, the land trust or to an entity.
Yeah, so
It
you
stays in private ownership, but has a permanent, not a temporary, a permanent
Can
easement.
never be developed.
So it can never be changed away from that permanent easement. It's a legal attachment to the deed, to the title of the property that would keep it in that condition.
Okay, cool, thank you.
Yeah, I'm in favor. I like the incentive. Seems the least we can do to kind of incentivize that sort of.
Okay. Then we don't need a resolution. We're not adopting anything, but I will address the letter to. I guess it's actually going to Kellis and Omara at this moment, so I'll address it from the board.
Yeah, thank you.
And the last item I have for the evening under my report is a mayoral appointment. So if you would all what, 6 of you online and however many are watching on YouTube, if you would indulge me for a moment. One of the more important things that I consider to be within the scope of the role of mayor is organizational planning for the village. I feel that one of the things that has historically been lacking, I think we've seen it recently in some neighboring municipalities due to unfortunate, unexpected passing of leadership, but as well in other situations where we can think of, we don't have necessarily the ability within municipal government to do what I would call traditional succession planning. We have elections, that's how we have succession planning when it comes to government. And of course, we have the power of appointment by whomever gets elected to, in particular, this particular seat. But wherever or in as much as a mayor has the ability to create an organizational structure that can potentially withstand the loss of individuals. COVID certainly shined a bright light on the risks associated with that. And also where a mayor has the ability to at least put in place the structure for some long-term planning. Then certainly when there's an election or a change in elected officials, those future elected officials can always choose, as is their prerogative, to throw out all of the previous planning that might have been done. But I think it's important that at least the attempt is made on the part of the folks who are in office at the time to try to create some type of structure that will allow for continuity. One of those pieces that I think is often overlooked in municipalities, particularly small municipalities around the state, is the front office. When we are fortunate, as we are here in the village, to have an extremely knowledgeable and extremely experienced village clerk, I worry about a situation where, God forbid, that clerk might not be available. When we have an extremely experienced and effective treasurer who has decided that the time has come to joyfully retire, I start to think about, well, what are we going to do to make sure that we continue the good foundation of work that she has created. And so we at our organizational meeting in April, we had an open position of deputy clerk. We established the open position of deputy treasurer. These will be 2 distinct and separate part-time positions, but the law does allow for a specific individual to fill them both, essentially working full-time between 2 different positions. I have wanted to find someone who preferably would be a village resident, although that's not a requirement, and who also has the municipal experience and skill set that I feel will create the potential for that continuity that I just attempted to articulate. I think I have found that person. This board has discussed it and has agreed. And so effective June the 6th, I believe it is, let me check my calendar. I'm making the announcement tonight, but this appointment will not take effect or not be effective until Monday, June the 6th. I am naming current trustee Jessica Giles to the 2 positions of deputy clerk and deputy treasurer. Jessica will not be officially accepting that tonight because upon acceptance of those positions, she will be resigning her seat as trustee as is required by state law. That does mean there will be an open position of village trustee, which will be my appointment to make. That individual, whoever it may be, and I have not decided, and I've actually not had discussions yet with anyone who may be a candidate. That individual will need to run for re-election next March to fill out the remainder of trustee Giles's term, which I believe would run through 2024. But that's the announcement of the evening. I appreciate Jessica. I appreciate you being willing to step into that role. And again, thanks to, I think it's appropriate for me to thank both Tammy and Vicky, Tammy in particular. I don't mind saying this publicly. I have the habit of shoving lots and lots and lots and lots of things Tammy's way. And I believe that this will free her up to concentrate on those things where her attention is most needed, particularly on the legal and governmental side of things. And Vicky, thank you for although you're not leaving permanently just yet, thank you for all of the many years of efforts as treasurer to the village. I can say, having been on the board long enough, the processes and procedures you put in place as treasurer are as good as I've seen them. And so it's, I appreciate that effort from you, and looking forward to you teaching Jessica all of your ways so that she can decide what to keep and what not to keep. So thank you, Jessica. And I think in our second meeting in 2 weeks, we'll meet to formalize your departure from this board and your acceptance of the appointment.
Okay.
And with that, we will segue directly into fire, TACC, ETC, and CWIO. Trustee Giles.
As trustee Giles, before I serve the village in a different capacity, thank you, Gordon. So we'll start with the fire department. I will point out that their annual fire company ball, so not department, but the fire company ball, where the slate of officers is witnessed and announced and formalized. That is May 21st. It'll be at Logan Ridge Estates, and the state of officers is unchanged, except for the fire company does have a new treasurer. I'm looking at my call sheet here. I'm sorry. Well, I'll find those in a moment. I also want to point out that on the 14th, there's the duck race that's happening in concert with the village yard sale, and that the Rotary is donating all proceeds to the rescue tool fund, and that will sort of officially close the very public aggressive donation cycle for the rescue tools. Though certainly people can continue to give to that, as that will be a fund that can always be funded. And speaking of funding, the comedy night that happened at Garrett's on April 1st, thanks to trustee Hannon, who was not present, brought in $5,900 to the Common Scholarship Fund. And since then, 2 graduating seniors from Trumansburg High School have been awarded scholarships from that fund. So it's nice to see that there's a direct result there. And I owe you an article about the fire department, and I can't find my calls, which is terrible. Oh, wait, I know why. Okay, so the other thing that I want to say, give me one moment. There it is. So reminding everyone that the call cycle is in April to April, right? So this is just really representing not very long annual calls here. So for the last month, and there were 7 calls to the village for 6 hours, 8 calls to the town of Ulysses for 13.75 hours, 1 call to Covert for 1 hour, one call to Hector for 3 hours, and 2 mutual aid calls. So a total of 19 calls, and the year-to-date total is 137 hours and 19 calls, plus 110 training hours. So still putting in the aggressive training. Are there any questions about the fire department? Oh, heads up that we will be asking for an upcoming equipment expenditure, which is already in the budget, but just that we'll be asking for $11,000 to pay for gear that needs to be ordered. Great. Okay, so the 150th celebration, I'd like to talk about that with the in terms of the EDC. And maybe we have to table, I don't know how we're going to do this. If we can make a decision on the logo and to move forward with the 3 of us, that would be really timely in terms of ordering the banner. So in your Dropbox under 6B and 6B1, you can see the logo, which will be, Tammy was the quickest to notice the year of inception needs to be changed, and Nana's alerted to that. But super gold star for Tammy noticing the first, and the color needs to be determined. But if we could approve that logo is amenable to the board, we can move forward with getting the appropriate vector files to TLF, which is the company that did the graduation banners for the high school. Are you able to see it?
I like the logo. The date obviously needs to be corrected to 1872.
And to the credit of the designer, it was a mock-up. This was never meant to be a final. So
Here we
Yes, did you say the color hasn't been determined?
yeah, it's been suggested that perhaps it should play off of our actual green, the Village Crest green. And also further suggested that 3 colors, if you want to have visual recognition, instead of just reading as a blank line, if you have 3 colors along the streets, then you get more, there's more cognition of the human viewing them.
3 colors.
Okay.
Meaning,
For example, green, purple, and orange.
oh, 3 different banner colors.
Yeah, same logo, 3 different banner colors. But if you look around in the world, you'll see that does happen when they're all, it's like when you line up salt and pepper on a table, you do it exactly the same way so you don't see it. If you change it up, then you see it. So we could work with the graphic department at TLF to solidify the colors once we get them.
Yeah, my only concern was with the graduation banners and the farmers market banners and the flags up, that very simple muted banner is going to get lost.
Yeah, absolutely. And so to remind us all that the 150th banners, the intention of this board was that they would be through the year. And I do have confirmation that the high school, the community, the high school would like to put up the graduation banners 2 weeks prior to graduation to be 2 weeks after. So that won't conflict with the downtown celebration on the 10th through the 12th. So they may not be up simultaneously, Tammy, if that helps you think about what's where. So
Yeah, I just didn't want them to get lost, that's all.
absolutely, yeah, and it is a beautiful, the color that was put on the mock-up could be applicable on a Facebook page or things like that, but I think that we're had been even your suggestion to consider using the green as a touchstone for what we might do moving forward.
Yeah, I think if it's a dark green, forest green, hunter green, one of those darker greens, so that the white pops.
Yeah.
If the green is too light, then you're going to start to lose the text in certain, especially in certain light angles, like when the sun is.
And well, in a motorized vehicle.
Yes, and we'll drive them by.
So again, their department can show us, 3 color options with very.
I don't know if I love the 3 color options, but.
Oh, I mean, even like 3 greens, you choose these greens, you don't. Oh, well, it is a pretty significant marketing strategy.
I like the picture from what you feel, so I'm kind of good with anything.
So why don't I feel like we could move
What
forward
would
with
the
that.
other colors be?
If that's open to discussion.
What if we just did 2 colors, or is that too salt and pepper? What if we did green with white lettering and then white with the same dark green lettering in the first?
I was thinking about that too, and I will ask to see if that changes I don't think it does because of the digital world change the price structure. I thought of that too, because that's That feels collegiate too. I feel like that's what,
They can be double-sided, right?
they're gonna be double-sided on opaque materials so that but they don't shine through. So let's ask about that, but that's also, it's easy, it's the most important part if we wanna hit the June 1st target is to say, hey, TLF graphics department, this is our logo, this is the size of the banner, and then the colors are like a click and we could approve that. We could approve that through email, could we not, the finalization of the color?
Yeah.
Okay, so I'm hearing no red flags about the logo.
It's up to
And,
date.
okay. So I will move forward with that, and then I'd like to approve that we can spend for the purchase order, which is also in there. So they're 51.35 or something each for 36 banners, which would be $1,851 for the banners.
Yeah, we don't need board approval for that.
Great. Okay, and then here's an interesting bit, which is that I was speaking with Dusty today, and we are missing some spurs that hold the arms that hold the banner, and then also the brackets that would go with that. And he told me how many he needed, and I reached out to TLF, and the cost for replacing those is $1,260. He needed 24 spurs and hangers plus 48 clamps. And they don't come like that from this company. It comes as a kit. So that's 12 kits
Why do we need so many?
because they broke off and he wants 10 backup. So if we eliminate the backup, it's the break off. That's a bunch that I was not expecting. And I'm curious as to who paid for those in the first place. Was that a village cost? So
But they're ours now.
but the high school has 72 banners on order. It's good that we checked in this week and found out that they're moving forward with that. They currently do not have hardware to hang all those banners, and I'm not sure how best to proceed.
Well, 72 banners, there's 36 posts.
We don't have 36 functional posts.
Right, but if we get the replacement,
Right, I know, but do we buy that, or is that part of, that's my question.
I think we're committed.
We are committed, okay. What budget does that?
What's the total between the two, the banners and the replacement hardware?
$3 grand.
What are the two numbers?
1851 for banners and 1260 for hangers, including redundancy for replacement, so we could shave some of that.
Well, then we should pay for it with board approval up to, let's call it 3,500. Just to make sure we have enough in that line, in that approval for our banners and the hardware.
And what's that gonna come out of? Is that will like pretty much gobble up the ETC budget?
Vicky and I will figure it out.
Can we
It's
figure
gonna be
that out?
ETC budget plus
And clearly we
or
intended it,
contractual plus.
okay, because clearly we intended the banners to be ETC budget, right? Because it's the 150th celebration.
Street something contractual, fine,
Okay,
$2.
Gordon,
Oh, Tanner. Yeah, but
we budgeted $5,000 for next year. So if Dr. could ask TLC to date the invoice for after June 1st. It to be taken from next year's budget.
Yeah.
And I thought that's what the plan was.
it's the surprise cost of the hardware, which is permanent and so,
yeah, I'm not worried about that part. Vicky.
Okay.
We'll figure that part out.
Okay. Okay.
So then if that sounds okay, then I would just entertain a motion that we approve spending up to $3,500 for the purchase of our 150th anniversary celebration banners and associated replacement hardware.
great, so moved.
Any other questions, conversation, discussion? Complaints or objections? Hearing none, then all in favor, please say aye.
Aye.
Any opposed?
Okay, last bit for me is if we want to do some radio announcements of the 150th downtown celebration or any aspect thereof, we have a quote for $630, which gets 18 advertisements through a week on 2 radio stations, WYXL and Q Country, for 2 weeks. So that's essentially 36 on each station. And I can show us, this just came into me today, so we don't have to decide today, and I can put that in and we can think about that, and I'll make sure you can look at it for next meeting.
And what are the ads? Just celebrating the 150th?
Whatever we want to say, it's just, it's a huge value. This is like a half price value, of course, as we know, radio.
It's always ads. It's always a big
Yes.
value.
But if the question is like, if we want to pay for radio advertising, and we could use those spots in any way, and I will bring that up in more detail and make sure you can see that quote in advance of our next weekend. Again, it came in at noon today.
Yeah, let's consider it.
Okay, we'll consider it, but we do know that the village website is live with all of the identified activities for the 150th. If more things come in, that's great. A Facebook event should be coming out from a Trimsburg events page this week. And we had agreed to sort of think about piggybacking Porch Fest printed materials. They are having a meeting about that this week. So everything is on target, but not finalized there. Are there any, I will connect with Trustee Hannon about how to get the 150th yearbook out there for more people to participate in. And I was going to try to connect with you last week and didn't fail to. But we'll see what your strategy is for that, so more people can do it. Are there any questions that might not be answered, hopefully by the website at this time?
I don't think so.
Okay,
I'll probably do a post this week, since we are 9th. Well, this week it'll be exactly a month, 4 weeks from.
that would be great. And since there isn't a Facebook event to link to, can you link to the website, the events page? Okay, that's great. That's it for me.
Okay. Deputy Mayor Carver is excused, but we do have our EMS administrator present in person. Welcome, Joel. If you would like to give us some EMS department updates, we would love to hear them.
Sure. Joel Fay, as you said, the EMS administrator. So for the month of April, EMS had a total of 80 activations. Out of them is our typical about 50-50 split between the town of Ulysses and the village of Trumansburg, in addition to a handful in our outlying areas. We are, again, as I'm sure has been discussed, we're seeing an increase in our mutual aid responses. We're going into Ithaca a lot more often, and we're also going to South Seneca, probably a little bit more frequent compared to Ithaca. So pretty steady increases in those. Month of April, we assisted Bangs 7 times. South Seneca only 4 times. This month, just the past 9 days, we've done 4 to Bangs and 1 to Hector. So none for South Seneca. A lot of department changes that we're trying to kind of produce some stability in the department overall. Being able to add kind of just a good foundation, so if there is ever movement in leadership again, that there is a structure in place for other people to assume roles and responsibilities, so it kind of can stabilize and hopefully live longer in a better capacity.
Do you have any way of knowing, and we can talk about this offline as well, do you have any way of knowing when we run mutual aid to Bangs, is their entire staff and crew out on multiple calls, or are they facing kind of the same staffing concerns that we and everyone else are?
It's a little bit of both. I mean, Bangs historically, in my experience, runs a pretty thin operation anyways, which is pretty impressive how they honestly do it. So it's a little tricky. So they're obviously dealing with some staffing issues, but primarily I think it's just the way their operation, they need to take the next step to staff another ambulance or 2. And they just haven't made that jump, but their volume kind of indicates that. And so until they make that step, which might be because of staffing, we're gonna be going out there more. I have some ideas in place for some mutual aid agreements with South Seneca and with Bags and Wolves that are kind of touch base off the record sometime.
Yeah, and it's in by no means am I attempting to throw any shade at banks. It's part of my thesis, which is always up for testing, right? Part of my thesis is that the network itself is being stretched like a siphon. And so if Bangs is staffed as they would normally staff, and yet they are pulled on more calls over a wider area, then it makes sense that we would be pulled to the south.
Okay.
If it's some other reason, then my thesis doesn't hold water, and then that's why.
No, I think that's the biggest piece to it, but the spikes, the times that we're going to 2, 3, 4 times a shift, that's primarily because they're unable to staff an ambulance, so they're down one. Typically is what we're seeing. So it is a little bit of both.
All right, any questions, comments for Joel?
Yeah, thank you.
Okay, DBW Water Sewer CBZR Farmers Market.
So again, I'm gonna skip CPZR and Farmers Market, not really much to update versus a couple weeks ago. But I do have a couple of items on DPW Water Sewer. So conversation continues about the Greg Street Bridge. There's some amount of disagreement on what exactly we should be, how exactly the steel should be constructed for that build. So still working through that. I do want to talk to you more about maybe reaching out to AccuCab again. But just an update there. Still hoping to get that done, clearly this year. We were aiming for this month. We'll see if that happens, but that continues forward. The sewer law continues to kind of move forward. We're getting responses back from businesses regarding grease traps, working with MRB to kind of, I think I have mentioned this, understanding different requirements for businesses. Does a restaurant that prepares food on site the same as a restaurant that doesn't, that sort of thing. So we'll see where that lands. We did have one question, and Tom will be here next time, and we can ask him then, around potentially having Tom help with inspection once it gets to the point of inspecting that people actually have grease traps, but that's a little further down the road. So we'll have to see how that works. That might be a question for MRB now that I'm thinking about it. So we'll see about that. And then water rates continues to kind of move forward. I'll be having a column of sort in the newsletter about this. There is an updated projection now in the Dropbox after going back and forth with Municipal Solutions and kind of reviewing the details a little bit more in depth. They're now recommending a flat rate of $41 per billing cycle with $5.80 per 1,000 gallons of water use. So that's up from what they had thought previously. The capital charge for EDU is still $20. That's for debt service. So altogether, I'll be putting this in the newsletter. People can see that there. But once this is all rolled out, that'll be looking at about a 32% increase in the flat rate since 2013 and a 10% increase in the per 1,000 gallons rate since 2013. We were anticipating a full 100% increase, like a double.
Oh, okay.
So that is less. However, that's where the hand waving is. The capital charge, once you factor that in, gets us to about 2x the rate on the base rate. So
Okay.
we're kind of where we expected to be when we kind of started the water work so many years ago. Though the per $1,000 gallon rate is still actually quite a bit less than what we had anticipated. So a little bit of a silver lining there. All that said, the proposal at this point is to phase this in over 2 years. So starting with the next billing cycle, we'll start with a capital charge of $14 per EDU, which is less than the total, and then we'll kind of increase that next year. So Tammy, I'll have to work with you to figure out how that works with billing, because that's gonna be the first time I think we've done anything for EDU, which is gonna be interesting. So I'll follow up with you, Tammy, on how that works. We'll try and figure it out together.
So the next bills will be going out in July for the May and June cycle. So whatever we decide, if we make them effective July 1, then they could potentially go out with the September bills.
Okay. So that'll give us time to.
So that gives us some time. If we need more time, then we just back it up 2 months.
I would expect if we start looking at that now, and I think we have all the information we need to be able to handle that by the billing cycle for July 1, so.
So we just need to approve that at in June.
Okay, I'll sure to bring that up in our June meeting. That is it. I do have exec session conversations about contract and staffing for DPW.
Great.
Oh, sorry.
Yeah.
One last thing, because it's not DPW our newsletter, just to touch on that again. I do have sections from the mayor, DPW, and EMS. I know Jesse said you could look at maybe
Yeah,
something for fire.
I will get, I have content for that now, but I also am wondering, I don't know what space there is, but what amount we could take straight from the events page and put on there.
Yeah, I definitely wanted to have, where my plan is, so,
So I have no additional content above what's already on the website. So whatever you want to pull from there that fits your formatting, if it's no
Right.
description and just a list, you know,
I might be, I know we want to have a little bit of like a calendar.
so I'm
of
gonna
events
leave that up
things.
to you unless you need me, and then you reach out to me if you need something different.
That
Does
sounds
that
fine.
work?
I
Okay.
can do that.
I can
Yeah.
get you a paragraph about the fire department.
Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah, and I'll be honest, I'm as late as everybody else. I'm still trying to get myself written for this water rates thing as well as something around zoning, so.
Okay.
But, yeah, we're continuing to move forward. I'll start working on layout. Probably maybe this weekend, maybe next week. All right, now,
Okay. Police, Coach Hannon.
We had first farmers market, right? That was this Wednesday?
that would have been a good update. Yes, the farmer's market is open. It was the first one. It was a little cloudy. Not cloudy.
It was busy. I
It was
saw it on the
busy.
way to fire company meeting. It was bumping.
But it's bumping and it's only gonna go up from there, because that was a cold.
It was
dreary start.
cold. Yeah, people are committed
And
though.
we were out there.
Great.
The new stump table is there.
Was it utilized?
Yes, I
A
guess.
couple
Did you
people.
stand?
I was
A couple people were getting off of it, and a child did manage to get up and jump off of it, which is also its maybe intended purpose potentially.
Just sign this waiver, kids.
Exactly.
The next big holiday gift item, the stump.
Stumped. Stumped on what you get for
Yeah.
Christmas?
There you go. So, not a ton to report, 163 calls for service in April, highlighted by 3 domestic investigations of harassment through frauds. We will be having the next iteration of our leads committee meeting on Thursday. So we continue to have good discussions in that group. I would say our attendance is held pretty steady. The people that started are still there, which is good. We're not really haven't attracted a lot of new people, but we're certainly open to it. So for everyone listening or your friends, etc., please let them know that if they want to talk about village public safety, all the things that fall under that, police department, and otherwise, we're welcome to have people join us, take part in the conversation. And that's really it. Smooth sailing right now.
Great.
Okay. Treasurer, Vicky, anything for us this month?
I am gonna start getting ready to close things for this year, transfer things over, do the reports that need to be done for the end of the year to the state for our new budget, put the new budget in, just the end of the year kind of stuff. I'm hoping to have our bank statements done soon, so Gordon and I can review reserve deposits from this budget year, so we can get those actually done before May 31st. Now I guess getting ready to do some training too. So, sorry. Other than that, normal daily stuff.
Okay. Any questions or comments for Vicki? All right, Tammy, anything for us tonight?
Just a couple of things. So besides regular water billing going out this month, which I didn't have any trouble with the upload this time. So I'm even more convinced that it wasn't our issue back in March. I'm working on re-levies. Payments are coming in. Seem to have a lot of tax searches in the last couple of weeks. Lots of escrow companies sending me information because it is almost tax season. So I'm preparing for the 2022 tax season. I am also been working on the annual yard sale, which I've done every year for, I think this is 10 or 11. We're up to about 30 people on the list, including 3 vendors at the market park. So that map will go out with any luck on Thursday afternoon. We did receive our first shipment of the new meters that were ordered to go forward with the water infrastructure improvement at Compass Mobile Home Park. So I have started getting those accounts in order and getting ready to input the data for those. Just a reminder to the board, if we're going to send out a pre-tax letter, it's almost time. And the other thing that I'm working on is getting the annual water quality report ready to go out the door on the 31st. I'm actually going to try to get it out a little sooner. My daughter's surgery has been rescheduled for the 27th. So Memorial Day weekend, I will be out for a few days around that. I think that about does it for so far in May.
So the pre-tax letter, Tammy, will actually be part of my column in the newsletter. So we're doing it differently this year.
Great. Perfect. Yeah, and I think that was it, unless someone has any questions. Ben, I wanted to respond, and I apologize for the delay. I wanted to talk to Dustin first about the water annual pumping quantities. I can't provide that information. All I can provide is what we've billed out. I have no way to know what we've pumped.
That was for the water capital project stuff. I can't remember where that ask came from.
Yes. Yeah, it came from Matt.
Right. Okay.
Yep. Because the village doesn't meter any of our buildings. So, and then of course there's hydrants and all that other stuff. So there's no way for me to know through the billing program what we've actually pumped versus what we've billed out.
Okay.
Okay. Thank you, Tammy. Item number 7 on our agenda is old business, starting with Main Street garbage receptacles.
Oh, boy. So I learned a couple things from Dusty. One is we do have garbage cans. Those garbage cans that used to be out do exist. Dusty said that they were an enormous pain in the butt. They don't have any locks anywhere on them. Anyone's free to just open them up, to hatch up and put whatever they want inside And that led to all manner of people putting personal garbage, cat litter, bedding, all sorts of random things there. So he was not thrilled about the idea of putting them back out. I think if we wanted to go that route, I think we probably want to look at something different, just to get more control over what you can put in and who can get access to them, that sort of thing. That said, I did ask Dusty to reach out to the county again, and they didn't give a firm date or anything, but it sounded like we're on the list for this year for another set of a pair of those garbage and recycling. Just like we've seen in the other, by Aldi and by Silverline. So, and that could land pretty easily in Napa, somewhere by the old Napa spot, because there's plenty of space to put that there. So my thinking at this point, though, we can obviously have a conversation, is kind of make do with what we have for the next couple of months and have that out, with the intent that we get something in there in the next couple of months, and see how that plays out, and then see if we feel like that's enough, or if we want to kind of add to that with a couple other garbage cans. And ideally, like I said, something probably where we have a little more control over who can shove what in where, sort of a thing.
Right. So how many of the old version that wasn't successful do we have, do you know?
I don't know if he had a number off the top of his head. I want to say it was half dozen or so, somewhere.
And so it wasn't so much the bin, it's the housing for the bin that was problematic.
Right, I mean, even on the top, you can kind of shove a bunch of stuff in there, but it was more that, like, the bin just, you open the door, you put the trash bag in or the bucket, and you open the door up and take it back out, empty it, and that door doesn't have a lock or anything.
Right.
Like, so it wasn't even that, like, people could shove anything in the top, they could literally just take the bucket out, dump whatever they want, and put it right back in, and so it really was causing quite a problem.
Okay. The Yankee in me is like, what do we have to work with? So we just need to build new housing? Okay. Just put some
Right, I
bolts
mean,
on there, some
Right,
locks.
like, can we just weld on some.
Yeah, but-
locks and- right.
That's great. I'll bring that back to ETC, that we're developing a deeper strategy.
Yeah, and if there's something, I know you had had ideas around also green space, and I think there's also a larger conversation too, but my hope is that a third one that's basically equidistance between the two edges, so you've got three, you probably can see one just about anywhere you are on Main Street with that main corridor. Fingers crossed that'll do us, and then, if not, we can kind of take the next steps from there.
Okay.
It's okay with me. Let's see what the county delivers to us
Yeah,
and when.
yeah, we can definitely check back in July, August, if we're not seeing anything yet.
Okay. From garbage to stretch code.
Yes, so Ben Carver had asked me, in lieu of his being able to be here, to introduce this. He would like me to introduce the law and then have us declare intent to be lead agency. Not seeing the law. So that could be problematic. He assured me it was in the Dropbox, and then I didn't see it there. It didn't know anything. So I can message him real quick and see if he can throw it in there.
I will say that I did talk to Ben today, and I think I want us as a board to discuss kind of the time frame here. So Tom will be coming to our second meeting in 2 weeks to discuss his take from the code enforcement perspective on what stretch code will require of him. I continue to primarily be concerned with the notion of when renovations rise to a level which would require stretch code to come into play. My understanding from Tom, and I believe Ben reached out to someone from either NYSERDA or Tatum Engineering, was that the stretch code itself is relatively ambiguous on when it would kick in for the purposes of renovation, and that some municipalities have taken it upon themselves to determine the level at which it would apply. Whether it's, I think one version I heard was renovations which encompass more than some amount of the square footage of the house would require stretch code to be applied to that renovation. So there's a conversation I think that needs to be had among us as to when we want that to kick in. I have received some, I'm comfortable with what I have heard with respect to the fact that stretch code would never apply to a part of a home that is not being renovated.
Okay.
So for instance, if you're gutting the first floor, that shouldn't mean you have to apply stretch code to your upstairs bathroom that is not being renovated, kind of thing. But I'm still sensitive to the notion of when does a project become major enough that you start to have to overhaul things that you might not otherwise have considered. The second piece is somewhere in between and prior to a final public hearing, somewhere in between the secret process, introducing the law, we're not going to set the public hearing date just yet, somewhere in all of that, I think it would probably be a good idea to have a well-advertised public informational meeting on this. If I'm all wet and nobody cares and nobody shows up, then great. However, it feels like, and I'm not hearing a lot, but I'm hearing a little bit, it feels like there's a significant lack of, and I know I have a lack of understanding, significant lack of understanding of what stretch code is, when it applies, who it might apply to, why are we considering it? And I think it would just be worthwhile to make sure we do our part to fully inform residents as to what this is and what it isn't. So that we don't find ourselves in a situation where, not to pick on our friends at the town of Ulysses, but they're considering what to do about special event permits. And I had someone approach me at the golf course and say, why is the town of Ulysses trying to shut down the fairgrounds?
Right.
And these are completely unrelated issues, but if we can get ahead of those kinds of, it's not even misinformation, it's just a lack of information being promulgated on what this is, I think that would be helpful. Particularly 18 months from now, when someone does start a renovation and Tom says, well, you need to, Tom tells the contractor, you need to work to this set of regs, that it won't be, it won't be the first time anyone in the community is hearing about it.
I think that's a great idea, and again, who knows who would come, but to have, so somebody maybe like local who spoke with us and lives in Hector to be able to speak, as well as Carver to set it up and we're here, like something like that.
I envisioned it being purely village,
Purely village.
including our code enforcement.
Okay, well, Ben knows it in and out, right, so he can answer
It would be
questions.
more, we're the ones who are going to take the questions if there are questions.
Okay,
So I think the messaging or the information should come from us.
okay,
Was my initial thought. I'm not opposed, I suppose, to having third-party consultant discuss it, but I had envisioned it being a public information meeting for village residents, by village residents, of village residents.
of village.
So, I mean, it's only been a couple of minutes, but I have not gotten a message back from Ben. I have two thoughts. One is, because I think this is our last bit of business over the comment period before exec session, we could see if Ben is able to get back to us and do something at the end coming out of exec session. I don't love that because I know people don't pay attention to that, but it is still a possibility. The other is, and I also don't love this either, but it's kind of recognizing what you're putting forward, and I think, I don't think I can personally go against more public comment and availability on anything. I think it does end up meaning that we have a diminishingly small chance of hitting the end of June if we're looking for that
Right,
bonus benefit on the side of getting some money. And so putting all that together, maybe it is not really, maybe it is just a sign that we should kind of punt on this, come back to it next time and try and put the potential bonus money out of the picture and just kind of go through the process as we should. In which case, if we don't get it right now from Ben, then we can just do it at the next meeting.
Yeah, I mean, $10,000 is not nothing, but I would rather make sure we check every box, discuss every angle, create regs, local regs if we want them, as to when it would apply. If we're gonna do this, I think tailoring it to the community would be not only better for the community, but also better received by anyone who might otherwise be skeptical about it. And I think that's, if it was $100,000, I'd probably feel differently. But for $10,000, I don't love working at other people's timelines anyway. But this will at least give us the ability to make sure we adopt something that everyone is, on this board anyway, everyone is comfortable with. So I would suggest that we introduce it and declare lead agency at our meeting in 2 weeks.
I think that's probably where we're at this point. I mean, even then, it was gonna be only if everything went right in line where we're gonna get there, so I'm open to that.
You mean, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to interrupt. Did you mean your intent to declare lead agency? Because we'll have to do all those letters and stuff.
That's what I said.
Okay, sorry, it was a little muffled for a minute. Thank you.
That's what I thought, and that's what I thought I said. It may not have been what I actually said.
That's okay. I like to interpret you.
Uh-huh.
Yeah, all right.
Clicking the block.
All right.
All right, well then, we can carry on.
Okay, item number 8, any items of new business?
Yes. The fire department and fire company would like to address the audiovisual system in the fire hall. Such that the computer is not adequate for actual presentations, and they'd like to investigate and see what village support there would be for something along the lines of, say, a smart TV or a more up-to-date apparatus that is operating on something better than Windows 11. Which it can't take updates for at the moment. And I think we've all had some frustrations with trying to use that. The visual part, I understand, Tammy, we bring our own audio, right? You set that up when we do meetings. So they would be looking at the speakers in the ceiling that are also not super adequate, but are less, anyway, not a major overhaul, but they would like to know if this board has to take a temperature of some support for investigating that and helping with the financing of that. Because we do also use it. So
Let's investigate that.
let's investigate that. Chief Taylor reached out to Jeff Burns to have a conversation about what are we talking about? How much money are we talking about? What do we need? And again, we know the modern world, we're not talking about tons of money to get something so that people in the back of the room can see what's going on. Okay, so there's no huge concerns at this moment. I'll just move forward and pay attention to those conversations and wait for the ask. Great.
Any other items of new business?
Since it came up, I might just say that as we launched, there has been some early invites to this sesquicentennial yearbook. The idea is to do some invites, sort of populate it, so that when it goes out to the broader community, people see that there's people in the book and it doesn't seem like this strange thing.
Gotcha.
Some people that are getting the early invites and kind of looked at it as, what is this strange thing? So, we'll, I think as we start to talk more publicly about it, I think there may be 8 pages in there right now. So, hopefully it won't look like it's some random thing asking for your information. It is legit. So if anybody's talking to friends, let them know if they want to be invited. Really, any of us that I've had as admins on that book can invite people. So
Okay.
I think that's
You
too.
And Tammy, that answers your question from earlier today, right? About what the yearbook was and why you got it from your email.
Yeah, I'm all set. I'm logged in and everything. I'm good to go.
Oh, cool. Great. I need to make a page, but thank you.
Mhm.
Keith, you got the invite, right?
Yes, 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 twice, I'll do it.
Just want to make
Did
sure
you
you're
do
not,
that too? Oh,
just
okay.
want to make sure you're not left out.
Thank you.
Feel left out.
Any other items of new business? Our second public comment period, privilege of the floor. If Ann or Mary have anything else to add? If not, then I would entertain a motion to go into executive session to discuss EMS personnel and contract negotiations subject to the Taylor Act
And
and DBW personnel.
So move.
second.
All in favor?
Aye.
And we are in executive